Hello and welcome to our Wild Ginger interviews.
Oh, hi, good evening. We're back on.
We're back. We're back every 2 weeks now.
Okay. Hi. I was just getting ready to sit and have a cup of tea and relax on a Wednesday evening. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And if you're joining us live, you can ask questions via YouTube. If you listen to us on podcast, we hope you enjoy this evening. So, who have we got on this evening, Jen?
Well, just the most amazing guest ever.
Oh, who's that? You can do a wonderful introduction to him.
Well, no, because I actually know quite a lot about this guy.
I'll just sit back and let you do the introduction tonight then.
He once won first local in the Carver Fell race.
I did. Wow.
I saw him come.
Is that a hard fell race?
Did you get first bet in that 10k that we did in near Nottingham? I mean, it really illustrious career. Am I picking the right ones here?
Yeah. My first ever 10k as a vet, right? Yeah.
Won more in that race than I've ever seen you win in any ultra with an envelope of cash.
It was an envelope of
30 quid or something.
30 quid for coming. But I actually got third prize for that, not first vet, which I was a little bit disappointed because I wanted to be called at first vet.
Oh.
So that's my first race as a
disappointment.
overthought that. Yeah, I know, it's terrible, isn't it? How disgruntled you can be. No, I don't want that envelope. Just give me.
Anyway, enough of the waffle.
Yeah, enough of the waffle. Yes.
I am only joking because we do have a proper runner on.
Do we?
Who is sat next to me?
Good evening. Oh, Richard, this is going to be very good. Yes.
Richard's already got a comment saying, "I hope this is good as he's choosing this over a run."
But I hope you're not ditching that run, really, Richard, as your coach.
Is that the only excuse for getting out of a run? Is that you're listening to your coach on an interview?
Yes. Well, maybe we'll add that as an excuse.
So yeah, we've got Marcus Scotney on, who has done other things other than the ones I mentioned.
Other than the Carver Fell race.
World Championships for the 100k, GB, England vest, winner of Dragon's Back, Kate Rath.
You know more. You're there.
I do listen, see.
I think you might have been there for some of those finishes.
I'm going to look around the room and see what other trophies are around.
They're all actually out in the hallway, hidden out of there, unfortunately.
No, by the front door. You got pride of place, and mine were, stuffed in the corner of the living room.
Yeah, but then people spend more. Anyway, yes. So, why am I on tonight? Anyway, what's...
Well, you did a run.
I did a run. I do lots of runs. I do lots of kind of running around and.
We're talking. Well, I'm gonna say the word sorry, Stu Smith, but I am gonna say we're gonna talk about FKTs. But we can also call them records to keep everybody happy. But yeah, you've done an FKT and we want to hear about it and get inspired for doing our own. I don't know why I'm saying that because I'm not, but
you never know.
Other people might.
Other people.
Me and Sherlock aren't planning any soon, but. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I had a little run across a route called the Limestone Way. If you listen to us on podcast, I'm holding up the very in-depth.
We're really technical here. Like no website, no nothing. This is a pamphlet about the route.
Yeah, this is proper Derbyshire Dales, produced by our local council for Derbyshire Dales District Council. You can get it for £3.50 on their website, and it's the official guide to the Limestone Way route, and it's a 46 and a half mile route, depending on how many detours you take, in the Peak District here in the Derbyshire Dales, and starting in Castleton, going all the way down to Rochester. You can pull off and go into Matlock, and it was first devised, if I remember right, this is what I should have done on my research and homework, shouldn't I, really? It was first devised in the kind of the late 80s, if I remember right.
Well, I grew up in the Peak District, and I did know the bit from kind of near where I lived to Matlock when I was a child, so it has been around a while.
Yeah.
So that was 1990.
And some of the signs actually out on the route have shown that they've been around for a while. These kind of little ram signs. But yeah, I mean, so that's one. I mean, you mentioned it being close to your mum's house.
Yeah, it's close to where I grew up.
So that was my first introduction when we went to kind of staying at your mum's. I'd go and run on it and go and explore bits of it, and then they started having a race along the Limestone Way, but that's different kind of course. It starts in Ashbourne rather than where the route actually kind of finishes in Rochester, and then deviates a little bit before it gets to Castleton.
I thought it didn't even finish in Castleton.
It doesn't finish in Castleton.
Hope,
yeah.
Oh, is that what you meant?
Finishes in Hope, so it's a little bit different route. But yeah, I mean, I had planned to run it last year during kind of lockdown when all races have been cancelled. Races off. FKT.
All this fitness and energy needs to be channeled somewhere.
Well, for a lot of athletes, but I spent last year, majority of it, kind of sidelines with annoying little niggles, putting a stone on at Easter, discovering an amazing craft beer by Ian Brewery, and yeah, was kind of hoping to do some races, but everything just kept getting cancelled. I thought I'd have a go at things like the Limestone Way and a couple of FKTs, but injuries just kept... I found sitting at desks only 5-6 days a week was not good for my body, and got a bit of hip flexor issue going on, which kind of sidelined me. So yeah, that project was put to one side, and then with MDS and the getting rescheduled to October, back in kind of February, I then kind of put my focus back onto the Limestone Way and more just treating it as an opportunity to try and get a long run under the belt, because I hadn't done anything over kind of 30 miles since November when we went to Achieve It.
Oh yeah, because that was your other race, wasn't it? Achieve It Goat.
Yeah, I was going to do Achieve It Goat in December, but that got cancelled because of that initial kind of mini lockdown, just before we kind of went into the last lockdown, wasn't it? Really,
I've lost track of the lockdowns, but yes,
we kind of had all sorts. So yeah, and that got, then once MDS was postponed to October, it's like, right, let's maybe move it, have a look at doing Limestone Way, and I was going to do it this kind of weekend or so, wasn't it? But the forecast and the trail have been so dry here in the Peak District. I don't know where everybody else is based, but yeah, I mean, the trails, the footpaths have got completely dry. And I just thought, let's kind of give it a bash, give it a whirl. Forecast was looking good. It was really kind of nice, northeasterly wind, tailwind. And we did, I went out and did a couple of recce's, which was a bit of a worry really, because normally for like a race, we'd always have a kind of good taper going into like a good 2-3 weeks, easing back on the training volume. But because I was still kind of in a build phase, my training was still quite high. So it was a bit of a kind of, a worry whether or not I'd tapered enough. Because even the week before, we'd gone and
So basically you're saying if they look at your training and see that you went out and did a 20-odd mile run the week before, that's not ideal.
Not ideal, no. Well, I wanted to get
not
to know.
you following your own advice.
No, I would never
But
say
you got
to an
away
athlete
with it.
I was coaching. Yeah, well,
Of course we wouldn't.
yeah.
What a stupid idea.
Well, it's incredibly stupid, but I wanted to get to know the last section because I didn't know the last section through the fields.
We also had restrictions to stay local as well, so that made going to recce that some bit impossible, really, didn't it?
Yeah, so we'd just got that restriction lifted so we could start travelling around a bit more, and so it was like, yeah, now let's just go and recce it, which is really useful recce, because I think I lost half an hour in that time when I recceing it, just finding my way across fields, because the last section of it, especially the last 10k, 6 miles, goes through all these fields, and it's all a bit like you get into a fielding and then like, right, where does the footpath go? And you're trying to find the star across the field and navigating around it, and sometimes there's 2 stars that lead on a different way.
Sounds brutal.
Well, if a mist had been down, if it had been foggy, then
you'd still be out there.
Then yeah, I could have been there for ages. But yeah, it ended up being a longer recce than I planned, and it ended up meaning that week I'd done like 11.5 hours of training, kind of like over 80 miles, which was a bit much. So I was a bit worried, and had grumbling tibialis posterior as well because of a long recce I'd done on a Wednesday, recceing it from Millersdale to Castleton and back. So yeah,
you're supposed to be telling us what to do, not what not to do.
Well, sometimes it is not what to do, isn't it? We learn from our mistakes and sometimes kind of winging it. But
I think you'd put, on top of this, you've got decades of training and running, and this isn't just something that you've taken up recently.
Yeah, I mean, I've got over 13 years of running ultra marathons behind me, so he kind of knew, and with it being only 46 miles.
Okay.
Well, again, but that's the ultra mentality, and I know people who are probably listening to this and are kind of maybe aspiring to their first 10k or marathon or half marathon or even 50k. It's a huge distance, but as you start doing these longer distance events,
you know that what you're capable of and what's quite easy to recover from. And
your whole mentality towards it. I mean, we hear a lot with our athletes, who sometimes will be quite daunted by, signing up for their first 50 miles, so they come to work with us.
And you go, it's only 50 miles.
No, I don't say that.
Right,
but
okay.
They say that after a while. And they're maybe going, it's only 50 miles. Their mindset changes and they're not daunted. They're encouraged by all the training they're doing that
yes,
it's not such an I know you are. But if you are watching us live on YouTube, please fire us some questions so you don't just have us
on our sofa. This is just
chatting to ourselves. We might be finishing early tonight. And Doofus himself, Sherlock, sorry, I call him that. That's his kind of pet name here in our house, Doofus. Sherlock is asleep on the other sofa. He's looking at us, going, "Why are you just talking to your screen?" Arlene, well, let's jump into a question.
Person and a real question.
Let's kind of jump away from the Limestone Way because we're going to talk a little bit more about the training preparation, how it went, and the nutrition. But
hi, Arlene.
Arlene, who's watching us live. So thank you for joining us, Arlene. It's good to have you along this evening. She's asked us, how do you balance training and coaching? So who's going to answer that question first? You or me?
Well, you do more training at the moment. So. For me, it's quite easy.
Well, fortunately, you're not doing much running at the moment, are you? Because you're fatigued. I actually find it, one of the reasons why I coach is so that I can train as well, because I'm able to dictate my diary, to choose when I work. As coaches, we work a lot in the evenings because that's when our athletes are available to catch up via Zoom or Skype. But it does mean, like, in the mornings we can kind of go, right, well, I'm going to just go and do my kind of longer run. So this morning I went out and did an hour and kind of 35-minute run, and didn't have any calls till kind of after lunch. So it's very easy to kind of structure the working week, and then tend to be kind of fitting it around my training. So there's certain, like Wednesday mornings, I won't do any kind of coaching calls because that's a time when I tend to do a bit of a longer run, and like times when I know I'm going to be training. So I tend to be quite structured when I'm doing my training, and then we'll put all my kind of calls and catch ups with athletes around it, and when we're working on schedules. So in some respect, that's one of the reasons why we are coaches, and that's why I kind of fell into it. And with lockdown happening last year, when I used to be doing sports therapy and I used to be in clinic kind of 2.5 to 3 days a week, then that was something I've then always had to work my training around as well. That was the kind of fixed hours I had in clinic, so I then had to really kind of fit my training around that. So like a lot of people have got a full-time job, my training had to go around that. But now as a coach, doing it full-time, I can kind of dictate my hours that I do and when I kind of chat to athletes. So it's a really nice way of, and in some respects, they both take up the time in the diary, but you're able to, I find it a lot easier to structure both around it.
Yeah, definitely. We're really lucky to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
So that we're not forcing ourselves out at 5 a.m. that I used to do when I was a lawyer.
That's it, and being able to have that really clear kind of structure during the week. And I devise my own training program. I'm self-coached, but I'm very kind of structured in how I kind of do my training week in, week out. If you do follow me on Strava, you'll see I tend to do the same routes quite regularly. And I think we've got a hill on a limestone valley behind us.
Don't tell them about that one. It's too nice.
Well, I'm not going to tell you where it is, but if you look at the Strava segment, I think I'm probably about to hit gone up there 1,000 times.
This year?
Yeah, nearly this year. It's really fortunate when you're self-employed that you can dictate your diary a lot easier to fit the training in. So, good question. I hope you're getting some training in, Arlene. And if anybody wants to reach out for some coaching, we can head over to our website, marcusscotney.com, and there's a page to hit there, or catch us on social media. And we're also happy to kind of chat about coaching bits and pieces.
So let's get back to the Limestone Way. And I don't know if you know this. Well, no.
Who, me? Or
no, I was going to talk about the White Peak and the Dark Peak, part of the Peak District. Because that mystifies some people. So we've got
mystifies.
Yeah. Like, what's the Dark Peak and what's the White Peak?
Okay.
And it's about To do with the limestone is what I'm getting at.
The rocks.
Yes.
Yes.
So
geological formation.
So now here's the geological interlude where I talk about.
I'll sit back for a minute.
No, I'm not going to go into detail about it, although it is something that I do enjoy talking about. But where we live is right on the kind of meeting point of the Dark Peak and the White Peak, and so in front of our house is dark. It's the gritstone and it's the peat bogs, and a very different landscape to the southern part of the Peak District, which is at the back of our house. Like you say, we've got a limestone valley, so that's all I was getting at, really. And the Limestone Way then starts at another part of those that join between the white and the dark, and takes you down through a very different landscape to, say, like if you're going over Kinderscout or from Edale or somewhere like that. So it's one where I find that there's a lot of people that maybe live in Sheffield, they come out to the Gritstone and the Dark Peak, and they don't get much further and explore these amazing limestone valleys, dales that we have. Have you got a picture from Cavedale, which is right at the start of the Limestone Way?
Yeah, I do.
Which is, that's of you, not of the... I should have given you the one with Sherlock in when I took a picture. So here's Marcus, so you can imagine what's...
Those who listened on podcast, they're fine. We'll just describe in a romantic way, in a very descriptive way, of how Cavedale looks. Those who are watching it live on YouTube, which I don't think are many tonight, so that's okay. They're happy looking at a picture of me. And if they head over to my YouTube channel, there's a video of me doing the whole run. Well, not the whole run. It's not 6 hours of me doing it. It's 15 minutes of me.
We do
running, and
which gives you an idea of the type of landscape that you're running through. So just describe briefly the route of the Limestone Way. So everybody's gonna have to picture this dramatic limestone. Like, just go and Google Cavedale, because this is not the best picture of it.
But the other great thing about Cavedale, if you do Google Cavedale, there's a castle.
Yeah, Peveril Castle.
Peveril Castle right on the top, and then the other side of it's the Devil's Arse.
Yeah. Oh, we're allowed to say that.
We're allowed to say that. It's a big cave. It's a big cave system.
Yeah, so I once said to one of my mates I was going to take them to Peveril Castle, and they honestly thought we were going to Wales, not Castleton. It
doesn't say kind of, it doesn't sound very Derbyshire-esque, does it? But I mean, if we're talking geology, though, if we're having a geological interlude,
I think that's probably enough of that.
But do you know why it's all limestone?
Well, I do, yes, but I'm not sure.
Oh, come on, you can't kind of tease it out. Let's go full.
So picture yourself at the bottom of the sea.
Yes, bottom of the sea. Tropical sea as well.
Exactly. So what fossils did you see on your trip down the Limestone Way?
Well, I saw some very old people. No, I don't mean that at all. Sorry, no. But yes, it's all mashed up sea creatures, isn't it? What's made the limestone?
Well, yeah, that's one way of putting it.
So anyway,
I was very lucky that my dad had like a geological degree. I used to go and see fossil hunt in the limestone dales of the Peak District, but I'll do a different podcast about that.
Jen's limestone. I used to do caving. I used to do this whole talk sphere about how limestone was great. Anyway, we're digressing there. We have completely gone off.
I was asking you to describe a little bit of the route. I know you're going to mention lots of the little walls, and anyway, I'll let you talk us through the route.
Whole route?
Briefly.
How long have we got?
You've got 3 minutes.
Excellent.
On
The clock's starting.
Imagine
now.
We're on Twitter. You've got 120.
Oh no, that's why I don't like to do that much. The route is, without sounding really corny, is completely varied. It's surprisingly how hilly it was. It was about 2,000 metres of ascent, so kind of over 600 foot of ascent. I don't know if that includes a lot of the stiles and gates. I think I worked out, going through the OS map afterwards, there was roughly about 205 stiles and gates and squeezes to go through. So the
limestone, the White Peak, is quite characterised with these fields.
A lot of limestone walls. It's very kind of
dry stone walls, and
dry
stone
walls. Yeah, indeed. And very kind of grassy, open. There is a few kind of bits of little woodlands you go through, but it's not much. But
no, and it's not particularly like high or remote, is it? On that section?
And so the route kind of just weaved its way down through. kind of starting at Castleton, and the highest point you actually go onto the route. It is quite early on. I'm just trying to find the map very quickly. There we go. So it goes up to the highest point about 500 metres over Bradwell Moor quite quickly. So the first mile has like 600 foot of ascent and up through Cavedale.
Yeah, it's quite steep. As well.
And then it kind of weaves its way down and goes for a couple of really nice small limestone valleys, Haydale.
Do we need to drink every time we say limestone?
Well, if you're listening on podcast, maybe you should. And then, it's just really, really varied. Then as you get kind of past Bonsall, which is one of the points where I met you, it then changes a bit more because it starts feeling like it's starting to leave the Peak District, and it becomes a lot more arable farmland, and you're getting a lot more view of kind of Staffordshire and Derbyshire areas. And then you then go through past the Tissington Trail, which is the old disused railway line, and then through the kind of beautiful village of Tissington before you get to Thorpe, which is the bottom of Dovedale, which is almost then you almost feel like you're then leaving the Peak District. And then the last 6 miles, as we mentioned before, is just through kind of farm fields.
Yeah, I didn't know that section, but you haven't sold that as the highlight of the route.
I can kind of see why the Limestone Way race starts in Ashbourne and cuts that section out because it's not the most exciting. Good evening, Brad. Glad you can join us. Hope you're enjoying the wonderful conversation we're having about running an FKT and the geological formation of the Dark and White Peak District tonight.
I've got that out of my system.
You've got it. Excellent. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so it's quite in 3 minutes it's quite hard to describe a route, but it's just very undulating, rolling. Some of the trails are really runnable, some are a little bit rough, and it was just that kind of nice variation. So you kind of. And
had you recce'd the whole route?
So I did
the week before.
Yeah, the week before. Yeah, goodness me. So I recce'd the first section to Millersdale on like the Wednesday, 10 days before, and then on the Sunday, which was just under a week before, I recce'd Winster to the finish. So that was about kind of 26 miles, 25 miles, and then on the Friday just before. I kind of just did one section I hadn't run for a while and then drove part of it as well because you do a bit of road. So I think in total I pretty much managed to. There was only 1 or 2 bits what I hadn't been on, but I'd been on them for quite a while. Before going from runs from your mum's, going over to like your grave, Robinson Shrines and stuff like that. So I kind of knew those bits from those runs were done locally beforehand.
And is that something that you'd recommend that people recce the route, get to know it?
Yeah, I mean it's an
does it spoil the surprise?
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? And athletes often ask this, should I go and recce the route? Will it help? And I think sometimes for navigation it can do. So definitely that latter section of a Limestone Way, going from kind of some of the field sections, having known those, it just meant then when I got through this style through the gate, I knew exactly where I was going. There was no faffing about the compass or, where's the next way out this field. But then sometimes races, so like when I did Cape Wrath, that I couldn't go and recce because it was all the way up in Scotland. But you can still sit and look at the map. So I spent a lot of time poring over the maps for Cape Wrath, reading the guidebook for Cape Wrath, getting an idea and watching videos and reading blogs. So I got an idea of what the route was like. And, it can really help having recce'd the route because you're then able just to focus on your running. You're not then stressing about kind of your navigation. But if we're not careful, we can end up almost jeopardising our training by putting recce's in there.
Oh, you mean like if it was a lot of travel and trying to put too much in at once?
Yeah. So, you've got to be kind of structured with it. And, things like the Dragon's Back.
As we heard, you were so well.
Wow.
I find that with the recce's, it's not just the navigation. I think it gives you a lot of insight into what the terrain's going to be like. Like if you recce the Limestone Way, you can see the polished limestone, that's going to be wet and it might actually change your kit and your shoes. And also I like it because then you can use your visualization and kind of imagine yourself along it. And
because when you did Northern Traverse, had you recce'd whole of it, or was there any section you hadn't recce'd before?
Well, I'd walked it. So I didn't plan to recce it because I thought I knew the coast, but then and then somebody went to recce that was doing the race, and I remember I didn't recognise any of the photos, and suddenly realised it was a bit patchy. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, pretty much all. Yeah, I think I'd done all of it.
And did that help when you then came to do the race?
Yeah, especially when you get to kind of 180 miles and you're pretty tired.
And you are pretty, yeah. So I mean, and that is, but you also kind of have rough ideas like when your next climb's coming up. So if I need to eat, you can start thinking about your nutrition strategy when you kind of know what the route's like.
And also, it meant for this that you could tell me exactly where I needed to be for the crewing. Like, you weren't giving me somewhere that had. Oh no, you did give me somewhere that did have double yellow. But most of them were pretty good. So it helps with that as well, doesn't it, if you've got a crew? And it really helped me knowing where the finish was, because it's a bit unassuming, isn't it?
It's a very unassuming
no
finish.
signs, just like rock out at a school on a road and you're done.
It's pretty unassuming. We've had another question from Arlene. Shall we just have a little Limestone Way break?
Interlude into Arlene's coaching.
into kind of Arlene's asking another question.
So the question is, in coaching, do you ever tell your athletes, no, you shouldn't do that if they're not physically capable? And I mean, should we try anyway and probably DNF?
Who's going to answer that one first? I answered the first one first. Arlene's question first.
I mean, I'm honest.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean like I'm negative. I'll be honest with if somebody's got a stupid idea or trying something where we don't, we can see that that's really not going to happen how they expect. So it's something, and I think that's one of the important things about a coach, is having that relationship both ways, that you've got that trust, that you can bring up your concerns. And sometimes, like, it's not necessarily about them not being physically capable, but sometimes we have athletes where they have kind of quite odd timing of races and plans, and I again will just be honest about what that could take out of the body, and whether, if one thing's more important than the other, how we could balance that.
Yeah,
I think I said that diplomatically.
Yeah, no, you have. I'll maybe be brutal and honest. As I think when we interviewed Kim a couple of weeks ago, and he was asked about coaching, and one of the key things is listening to the athlete and listening to their motivation and reasoning behind doing certain events and certain races. So you've always got to be kind of mindful of their motivation behind doing it, and so sometimes you kind of say, no, that's not going to be a good idea. You could be crushing a bit of a dream, but sometimes it's helping to unpack that. So why you're saying no. So if somebody's planning on a certain race and you just can clearly see they're not going to be physically fit, it's almost better to hold off for 6 months or a year to build up the fitness. Then that's always better, because there's nothing worse than lying to an athlete, because ultimately that's what, if you're kind of going, yeah, you'll be fine. You're ultimately lying to that athlete, aren't you? And then they go and have a horrible experience in DNF, then that doesn't really reflect well on us as coaching. It's always better to be honest, and sometimes, we have to be the bearer of bad news. We sometimes have to be the one that kind of says, look, the good thing with being a coach as well, so a lot of reasons why people will employ a coach is because we're able to be kind of looking, at the bigger picture, aren't we? We're able to look at everything that's going on and help them look at it holistically, rather than sometimes when we're aiming for a race or an event, we become very kind of single focused, tunnel visioned on it. So often a coach will be kind of going, well, look at how this is going, look at how that's going, and give them reason why of saying, you shouldn't do that, rather than just, being a complete killjoy. It's not pleasant as a coach when you have to say to an athlete, look, I really don't think this is a good idea. Now that doesn't always mean that our athletes then listen to us, and we have been proven wrong. So that's one of the joys of coaching. It is so much of an experiment. So it's nothing. You don't want to lie to athletes and then they end up DNFing and having a horrible experience, because then you really have let that athlete down. But we do sometimes say to athletes, maybe you shouldn't do that. And sometimes it's just getting carried away. It's excitement. Like, with races coming up, people will book a lot of races into their year and not really give a consideration how much recovery they need after the race. And that's one of the big things that, is so important when you're planning your ultramarathon calendar out and the races you want to book in, it's always like, right, have I got capacity, 2, 3, 4 weeks to recover from this race before I then start my next training block of maybe 10, 12 weeks. If you haven't, then the likelihood is you're going to put the body under a lot of stress and strain, which could then lead to kind of burnout, fatigue, injury. So that's one of the things we, as coaches, we talk to a lot of our athletes about, is this the best build-up? Is it the best strategy? So yeah, sometimes we do have to be that killjoy. So, but great question, and I mean, if you're employing and a coach and paying them money, then you always want to listen to their advice, and sometimes you will get advice you don't like hearing.
Same from when I was a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
I was always honest about chances then.
Whether or not someone would get off for a nicking or get off something, but yeah, you can't lie to people. That it's not a good way, and that wouldn't sit with me anyway. So, yeah, there we go. I hope that's answered that question. Cool. Where have we got up to? We got up to
recce. So we've ticked off the recce. So talk a little bit about the planning for doing an FKT attempt.
Ooh. Now this is where we slightly differ, don't we? This is where I go into full spreadsheet mode.
Yeah, I shouldn't have. I don't want to admit this in case anyone coaching athletes. You mean I might leave things to just plan that the night before? Shove it in a bag.
We could always talk about half MDS per room, could we?
I was working a lot of hours.
You were working a lot of hours. You were working a lot of hours. Fair on that one. Yeah, touche. But it was fun driving to Asda at 10 o'clock or Tesco's to buy glue to glue your Velcro onto your shoes before you flew out at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was fun. Anyway, yeah. No, I mean, I am a spreadsheet geek. I do like a spreadsheet. So what we mean by that is when I'm planning a race, I will sit down and kind of look at what time I want to be doing it in. Ideally, look at what other times people have done it in. So I looked at what the previous time on it. David Harrison done like 9 hours 43, which seemed quite generous time for somebody like myself. I'd had a look at what the guy who won the race in like 5 hours 40, and that was a bit shorter. So I was looking at all those times and looking at some of the training times. Then I started plotting out the kind of key villages and kind of points along the route which I could use as markers to kind of say, and kind of going through what was in the guidebook as well.
So what sort of sections did you break it down into in terms of distance?
So I broke it down into kind of 10-mile sections, 10 to 14-mile sections. I think it may have been less for that going on the tracker, just so when people were following the tracker, they could kind of keep a little bit closer eye onto it. But I planned to have you supporting me kind of at 14 miles, 11 miles, 10 miles, and 9 miles along the route. So we had like three checkpoints. And then I was kind of working out roughly how long each section is going to take. My initial plan was to try and do it in under 7 hours. So just under 9-minute miling, because that kind of seemed a kind of fairly comfortable time with what I've been doing in training recently on some of my longer runs here in the Peak District. So that kind of became better. Then I did have the secret goal of wanting to run 6.5 hours on it as well. That was my kind of secret goal, which I had let you into. So Ben created a spreadsheet of how long each section was going to take, and knowing that average is probably going to slow in the later stages. And then if the first section was like 14 miles was going to take 2 hours, which I think was the initial section, then working out, right, for 2 hours, if I'm going to eat every 45 minutes, every half hour, how much food do I need? And then I start plotting out how many gels I'm going to carry, how much mountain fuel I need. And that then kind of creates the whole menu in some respects. So then when you were crewing, you had just this bag of, little mini bags of what was going to be given at each checkpoint.
Yeah, it wasn't the most complex crewing I've done.
No, it was
an easy one.
It was fairly straightforward. Yeah, and I was trying out spring gels for the first time. I kind of looked at using these for MDS, Marathon des Sables, because of they're 250 calories in a 50-gram gel, my speed nuts. Should I say that again? No, okay. And so I've been looking at using these for MDS because of super high calorific, gram to kind of calories, really good count. And I just wanted to test them out. So I was carrying 3 of these, and I had 2 spare in my pack as well. And then 2 kind of 500 ml kind of bottles. So.
Oh, there we go. We've got a picture of the complex checkpoint. 2 bottles.
Back at the car.
Gels.
And it kind of actually looked a bit more, kind of, if I move that up there.
Oh, even more classy.
So this is kind of the back of the car. You can see Sherlock in the crate. Sherlock joined us for the whole journey as well. Yeah. So we just had them laid out.
I look really enthusiastic.
Yeah. Asking me if I had my gloves, if I needed my gloves, because I stuck them
cold.
in my shorts. It was a very cold start. But we kept the kind of what we could call checkpoints really slick. So because of the timing I was looking at doing, we made sure they were just kind of rolling. And by what I mean by that is that I just kind of came in, grabbed the bottles, grabbed the gels, put the gels in my pack, and then just slowly fed the bottles into my pack as well as I was going along. So it was maybe only standing around there for a minute or 2 minutes.
I don't think it was that.
If you watched the video I've uploaded on YouTube of me doing it, you'll see when I come into Bonsall, I did actually work out that I hadn't made enough bottles of mountain fuel, and I had this bit of a stress.
I mean, let's save the drama.
That was almost the high drama of the Limestone Way. Me kind of suddenly going to Jamie, was just running along going, Jamie, I've not made enough bottles of mountain fuel.
I mean, all I had to do was pour some powder and some water in a bottle, so I wasn't too concerned about you flapping. I didn't get drawn in.
No, but this is the thing though, isn't it? When we're in races, it's amazing how sometimes you get kind of wound up in this anxiety, and you just get,
Should we talk about that time you had a real massive shout at me in some local marathon because you'd asked for bottles and I brought hard bottles and not soft flasks?
I asked for soft flasks. Yeah.
You asked for bottles.
But it's in that heat of the moment, because you're racing and you're so focused on some of the really kind of pointless details in some respects, aren't you? Because you want it to be just as smooth and as fluid as possible, and you then will start worrying and ruminating. Is this going to have an impact upon my time? Is this going to have an impact upon my race? That's the only time I've actually ever had a major paddy at a checkpoint.
Well, you got in my Sandgator thing. So.
Touche.
So there you go. 1-0.
If anybody's listening on podcast now, they're going to be like, they've changed to something else now. They've gone to Elizabeth Day, How to Fail. Or kind of something more interesting. But yeah, so nutrition was very, very kind of slick.
So is it? I mean, well, I'll ask questions.
Ask questions. But
I mean, for gels for 46. I mean, then they are real food gels, aren't they? Because I would have I'd have had a picnic and a sandwich for 46 miles, but it would have taken me considerably longer. But I mean, like, are you pushing it a little bit there? Did you know that was going to be enough food? Do you think you would have craved any real food, or are you happy with that?
I mean, the spring energy are more kind of fruit, and the speed nuts are kind of like a mashed up nut. It's almost like a peanut butter, but with fruit in it as well. So it's high calorific. It's 250 calories, so it's a fair amount going in. It's not just pure sugar, so it's not 250 calories of sugar.
They're not like the gels that you might use.
It's not kind of I mean, I've used the mountain fuel jellies in the past.
So how many of those did you have for the whole?
I consumed 9.
I'm sure it says on the label, like, do not take more than 10.
I was kind of taking it to the limit almost, wasn't I? I mean, I did have some Cliff Blocks in my pack as a backup. So if I going on, but also
no bars or anything.
But no bars, partly because of the pace I wanted to go at.
Yeah.
And I've learnt this from 100k when I was done 100k on road, and you're running at kind of 6 30-minute miles.
I'm sure
100K.
I held out half a banana a few times on the 100k.
But you could it would have been. It wouldn't have been half a banana.
We did it. The one in Wales.
Maybe it was just softened. It would have been very softened. And you can kind of suck on your banana.
Yeah, I had to
bit masticate
it first. Just part of the crew.
Yeah. You know how I like my bananas masticated. I do apologise for those listening in. This is like a daily conversation in the Scotney house. But yeah, no. It could have backfired, but I'd been using these in training, and I was finding them working really well. Okay. And with it again, I'm gonna say only 46 miles, but because it wasn't like a big long route, and with the thinking of running about 7 hours, I was thinking I could probably just get away with just putting gels in, rather than eating bars, because sometimes bars can just get a bit hard to eat sometimes.
Slow down.
Or just not, just coagulate in your mouth.
And what was in those bottles? So there's 2 bottles there.
So the bottles had mountain fuel in, so just some of the extreme energy, which is kind of one of our favourite drinks we use, and then the other one just had plain water in. And that was every kind of time I met you, those kind of 3 checkpoints was just picking up those 2 bottles, one with mountain fuel, one with water, and then I was just kind of sipping along.
And I was handing them to you, so you weren't making your pacers carry these.
Yeah, I mean, originally when I planned it, I didn't have any pacers lined up because of the lockdown restrictions, and it was only Jamie's one of our athletes who we coach, and I was chatting to him on the Friday, the day before, and we were talking about weekend plans, and I kind of mentioned that I was going to be doing the Limestone Way, and I just said, well, if you want to come and sort the long run round and join me. So Jamie, it was the very last minute. I was like, getting him to come along to open gates for me. Jamie did a fantastic. He opened something like 65 gates. He's running downhill. It wasn't. I should kind of switch that picture around. So I'll just put a picture of Jamie running down.
Great pictures. It's really getting to see the Derbyshire.
What's that? That's the Hermit's Cave in the background, isn't it?
That's at Robin Hood's Strides.
Strides, not Strides. Strides.
I told him off for getting getting that wrong in the video.
So so sometimes you would, sometimes you're doing things like Bob Graham. You would have pacers with you who'd carry your water, and carry your pack, or act as a mule. But because of I only had Jamie for the first kind of half up to bonds of 26, I didn't want to be reliant upon him carrying stuff, and I was using the new kind of Montaigne Gecko VP, which is a kind of slimmed down version, which is a kind of an updated version of the original Montaigne Gecko pack. So I just had my water in there and just a Featherlight.
Yeah, because it started off quite cold, didn't it? But it did warm up by the end.
So this weighs next to nothing, so it's dead easy having my bottles in there and the gels, and I carried the GoPro in the other pocket.
That weight.
Yeah, well, so we could get some good footage. So I could get some footage of going along of a local scene. So it's always that kind of thing. If you have pacers and if you've got people working with you, whether or not you get them to carry your bottles as well, because then you've then got to be asking to drink stuff regularly. So I found it just. To be honest,
Jamie had enough to carry with that massive 20-litre bag or whatever he turned up.
Jamie had kind of rocked up with quite a big pack.
Did he have a full picnic?
I think Jamie had
no wonder he was gutted that you went a bit too quick.
He wasn't short of a full picnic, unlike myself. It was more just in case Jamie pulled out at some point, and
that's true.
Just carried on. So
it was quite relaxed. The informal, the pacers that they ended up rocking up at a very last minute, didn't they?
Yeah. So Jamie kind of came on board on the Friday evening, and then one of our former coaching athletes, Martin Zaleski, who lives in Matlock, suddenly appeared up at Bonsall, and he joined me for a few miles up to the High Peak Trail, which was great. He was far more sprightly than me. As I was kind of getting to the 30-mile mark, I could just start feeling it kicking in. But he was good. He kept me going a little bit, and then I had a section on my own, all the way over to Thorpe, and then Max Wainwright, who's a former dart peaker and now Matlock runner, quite useful fell runner, kind of suddenly appeared and kind of tagged along. And
well, first I bumped into him, and then
there's another story here, isn't there?
The drama.
The drama, yeah.
Of chatting too long to Max and then suddenly realising that you were way ahead of the schedule that you'd given me. So that's also an issue when you're crewing, is that you can't, you had to be there before. And there were double yellow lines. So I was whizzing back to get to the point where I was supposed to meet you, and just you'd already passed by a few metres.
Yeah.
But you got the water, it was fine.
We just had to do a stop in the middle of a road, didn't we?
Well, I was shouting, it's Max's fault. Max, you just...
As we quickly filled bottles up and I grabbed my cap and grabbed some gels out of the back of the car.
We survived.
So I don't think it kind of slowed me down that much. But no. It was the only main drama of a runway, wasn't it?
Well, we've had worse than that. I mean, I did see you, and
Yeah. Plus, but you had also the track had stopped you as well, hadn't it?
Well, there's no reception in Thorpe, so that was more the issue.
Yeah, cool. We've certainly got another question coming in as well, so we have got people watching us live. So thank you for joining us live.
Hi, Peak Proof.
If you do have any questions you want us to answer, and us not having a
Shut us out. Yeah, so that's a really good question. Are you using a watch for your pace, or are you just doing it on feel?
Yeah, cool. So as coaches, we use a lot of kind of heart rate as one of our main ways of coaching for athletes, because it's a really good measure of the effort you're putting in, and whether or not you're working aerobically or anaerobically. And it's amazing how many people, when they're running, tend to be running more anaerobically, so working out a little bit harder and then not developing their aerobic threshold, which is so important for ultra marathons. But then when you come to race, you then have to be kind of cautious of using heart rate, because of adrenaline kicks in, a bit of nerves, excitement, so your heart rate can be a little bit higher. So I didn't use my heart rate for the Limestone Way. I kind of had that off. What I had done is gone through some of my previous training runs of what my heart rate had been, what my pacing was like. So I had a real good idea of, what my pace was going to be at a certain heart rate. So yeah, I had kind of done the pacing for the first couple of sections. Oh, it's Paul.
Hi.
Hi, Paul. How are we doing? Who did an FKT the same day? I was doing mine around kind of the Kinder Loop. So well done on your FKT as well on the same day. So I kind of had an idea of what pace I needed to be doing at. And then I also went very much off on field to begin with. So we kind of took it fairly easy up Cavedale, because I say it's a first mile 600 feet of ascent, so it's all uphill. It's quite rocky, so you can't really run it too hard. And if you go too hard on that, you're just going to trash the legs, and then they're going to be in deficit quite early on. So we kind of went up Cavedale very comfortable, and once it got flattened, then I started to kind of just run a lot more to feel, and just kind of, I didn't really look at my watch until almost till Millersdale. Jamie was watching his watch a lot more. I was very much running to feel, and now and again just looking roughly what my pace was. But
what screen would you have on? What data would you have on your watch?
I just had my normal kind of running screen, which was kind of time, distance, pace, and would normally have heart rate above it as well. I didn't have average pace, because that's another screen to scroll down. It was only when we started dropping in towards Millersdale, and I said to Jamie that we should be here at this time, and we should be on this pace. Jamie was like, I said, average pace should be like 8:57 sort of thing, 8:47, and he went, we were well inside that, and we were inside kind of 8-minute miling. We were moving along, but yeah, I did it very much on feel for a change, very much like, and great having Jamie there, that, we could chat. So one of the things we talk about with running aerobically is conversational running. So you should be able to have a conversation when running. So, and you'll see in the video posted on YouTube that, me and Jamie are talking, I'm talking to camera as well.
Oh, you do a little tour as well.
Do a little bit of tour, yeah. It was pretty much on the effort. In the latter stages of the last couple of miles, I definitely was running more to pace. I was trying to keep it a little bit higher pace, so I could get close to the time, because I was then trying to work out how quick a time I could get on it. So then
quite flat down at that bit though.
Yeah, once getting over the stiles, there was one cheeky little climb just under a mile to go. So it was very much about a lot of effort, more than kind of, right, does this feel comfortable? And then just keeping an eye whether or not it was up or down on pace. But I knew it was kind of well up on pace because how it was moving.
Cool. So we've had these slick checkpoints.
Slick.
Poor Jamie's hanging on because you're going way quicker than the schedule.
Yeah.
I'm just about getting in place in the right time. So talk us through a bit about you realising you're quite high, like ahead of your schedule, and how did it go towards the end?
Yeah, I mean, so as we dropped into Millersdale, I say to Jamie, and I said it on the video as well, that the whole plan I wanted to be up early on, because you tend to find in an ultra marathon, the latter stages, the fatigue kicks in, you start losing time, you start dropping time, and there was a bit of fatigue kicking in after Martin left me as I kind of got towards Tissington. I could start to feel it a little bit, and I was quite...
about 30 something miles?
That kind of I remember, looking at watching, and I got 10 miles to go, and I was just starting to think, this is starting to hurt a little bit now. Take a bit more food on board. But in some respects, it was just quite a nice fluid day. It just really kind of flowed, and as me and Max got into the kind of last 6 miles, and I was keeping an eye on the watch and could see we're moving quickly, I was getting a little bit sore. Max kind of apologised for talking lots, because he could see that I wasn't replying that much, because I was just wanted to focus on keeping myself moving. It started to just feel like this is going to be a good day. This is going to be a better time than I anticipated. My secret goal of 6:30 was going to get beaten. And it was a question of then just trying to keep food going in and water and hold on for this, especially the last kind of 3 miles. As you kind of get close to where it's really runnable, it was just like, just keep moving, keep eating, keep drinking. So it was just really nice and fluid.
There we go. Really easy.
Wow, I know, which kind of...
Have we got a photo of you at the finish?
There's a photo of me finish.
So just talk us through a bit of the stats. So, there he is. I mean, you can't see the massive school on the right on this photo, but Marcus is running down a road, and by this point it's actually quite sunny, quite warm. You're in t-shirt and shorts, and you've put it on there. So 46.4 miles.
Yeah. And
your time?
6 hours 18 minutes.
Cool. Gotta be happy with that.
Oh yeah, more than happy. Yeah, no, just as I had secret goal of 6:30, was well inside that. Nutrition worked brilliantly. Legs worked fantastic. Considering
Crew
not done.
Worked fantastic.
Well, slight hiccup in thought, but let's not worry about that too much, shall we? But I can and the conditions I think really helped. You took a picture of my legs at the back, and they were completely clean. There was no mud whatsoever on the back of my legs. Which is
very unusual for any part of the Derbyshire.
For Peak District, finish with clean legs.
So do you think that's something that you'd advise, is kind of being flexible with dates and waiting to, because that's quite hard in training. Like, we train to specific, well, this is, the date of a race, and then to say, oh, well, actually conditions look better 2 weeks early. How would you know that that's a good idea to go for it, or you might not be in the right condition?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because you've got to be thinking about, am I peaking too early, too late? If I suddenly put this out, me bringing it forward a couple of weeks, there was that dilemma. Had I overtrained? Was I going into it overtrained? And, I did do quite an aggressive taper into it, and only had a few days.
A few days.
Yeah, kind of a very little easy running to let the body recover for it.
And I guess if you are relying on paces, it does make it a lot trickier just to have everybody on standby for weeks.
Yeah, so. We've done Bob Graham pacing, and the weather's been absolutely awful. Like when John Kelly did his Grand Round.
John Kelly always gets awful.
That was one of the worst conditions I've ever been in the Lake District in August. That was just like, I was in full waterproof trousers and so many layers.
That was the best date, so that was hanging on for the best date.
And when you've got paces, and that's again one of the joys of doing it very kind of ad hoc with just you in the car, and then just fortunate that because we had track, a couple of people were able to turn up and join in on the fun. So you want some level of flexibility, but sometimes if you're working towards a schedule and maybe other family commitments or work-life commitments, and you've got to just roll with it, haven't you, unfortunately.
And in terms of, so I am FKT, fastest known time or record, like how did you know what the record was, and how can we all find out about little routes near us?
Well, there is now. We've still got a question from one of the patrons we're going to ask as well.
Oh, yeah, but that's not specific.
Okay,
we're moving on to that.
Oh,
did I feel like I was wrapping you up?
I thought we were getting into an hour.
And then we can go generally into kind of transferring this training to.
Brilliant. Sorry.
That's a plan.
There's the FKT website, or fastest known time website. Bit of a kind of bone of contention. I know some people find that a bit of an American phrase. We used to call them records, but there's www. I think it's fastest known time, and then there's a search facility, so you can either search the maps or type a certain route, or you can kind of zoom in onto the UK map or wherever you're based around the world and see what FKT routes have already been done. Another great website to finding long distance trails would be the kind of Long Distance Walking Association.
I love their races as well.
They have got some of the original iconic races: the Buddock Smithy, Long Winged Hike, the one in Yorkshire. What's normally at Easter weekend? The name is completely just the Fellsman. Thank you very much. This is why I have you along by the time of it. So when I have these senile moments. And like the Fellsman, they're all kind of tied in with that Long Distance Walking Association. So if you go on their website as well, so if you're wondering if there's any long trails near you, you can tend to pop on there and see what's around. And then you can always then submit that to the FKT website. And put that onto their website. So yeah, I mean, you're looking at some of the maps as well. But say the Long Distance Walking Association is a great website to see what long routes are around there, and you'd be probably surprised at kind of what routes are around you. So yeah, be kind of creative with it. Does that answer?
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Cool.
Free.
Yeah, I mean it's different in racing,
flexible.
Isn't it? Yeah, I mean, you kind of it's almost making your own ultra up, isn't it? Rather than having to kind of enter a certain race. And if you look at the most ultra marathons, a lot of them are following these long distance routes anyway. But they're then
you
just
have to pay hundreds of pounds for the pleasure.
Yeah. So sometimes, you have
so
to
in
pay
terms of, I mean, obviously some people would like the social aspect, like the buzz that you get from a race, and also then you can rely on. Sometimes you're running with strangers that you've just met but that are helping you along. So in your experience, how does the races and the FKTs differ?
I mean, well, this is my first
or are you
one.
Just so far ahead that you never race with anyone?
Well, I mean, I was just as competitive on the FKT as I was in a race.
And how did you motivate yourself to be that competitive?
Because I wanted that time. So it was about very much geared towards wanting to hit that time, wanting to hit 6:30.
But you came in under, so how come you didn't just relax for the last few miles and come in at 6:29 that I probably would have
done? Because my ego was then like, right, how fast can I take this? Like, well, in any race.
Now we're on the therapist couch.
Yeah. Well, so many times when I've raced, I've come back and gone, I could have done that quicker. Even on Limestone Way, I look at it and go, I could have gone quicker. Part of that is just my competitive nature as a runner. Years and years of running have just, I not that I'm not happy with the result. It's never that. It's always that wanting to strive and wanting to be kind of slightly better and seeing how far I can push myself. So yeah, it's that. Yeah, could you? It's like when I used to do 10K races. It was always like, right, how fast can I keep doing 10Ks? It was never like, right, great, I've run 31 minutes, so I'll just sit back now. It's like, no, I wanted to get under, I always had the goal of wanting to break 30 minutes, which I never did for 10K. But yeah, say marathon or half marathon.
So I find the same in ultra. A bit like that against the race against the clock.
Yeah, rather than just, right, get that time. And, because if I'd ran 6:30, then somebody gone 6:28, if John Kelly or Damien Hall then rocked up for the Limestone Way, it would be like, darn it. So yeah, don't want to keep it low hanging fruit.
And in terms of you saying, oh well, I'm looking at where you could shave off time. Like, where do you look and say that you could shave off time from that one?
Well, Thorpe, I think.
Get a different crew.
Have a crew that actually meets you.
I was on the same road.
No, I mean, it is like, could I have been more slicker at the car points? Saving seconds there. And then, like, on some of the sections, maybe where you're thinking, oh, maybe I just took that climb a little bit too easy, or I should have hit that descent a bit harder. It's just kind of, you start really kind of micromanaging it and really taking it apart, which, sounds like you're not happy with the result, but I am really, really pleased with the result. It's always more like that more growth mindset of, right, well, how can I improve this? And it's more for going into your next race as well. It's like, if I try this next time, is that going to help my performance? And is that going to improve my time? And so on and so forth. So it's not about not being content. It's more about, right, how can I keep improving it?
Paul Barton's come up, another question. He wants to know how your nipples are. Well, any gear issues, how are your toes, nipples, etc. It's quite specific there, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
I think we need to put this on so that I'm not making it up and looking like I'm the weirdo.
Asking about my nipples. Yeah, fine. Yeah, none whatsoever. No problems. Thanks for asking. I think with partly because of the volume of training I do. Well, I mean, my toes aren't great, are they? I've got really bad looking toenails.
Please don't show them.
Unfortunately, years of ultramarathon running have made my toenails look a bit skanky.
I mean, feet in general, I'd say.
But they are fortunate that on certain runs like that, they don't.
So what were you wearing for these?
So I wore in gingy socks, which I always kind of wear. I've been wearing them for years. And like you say, I never had blistering in gingy socks until I did UTMB, and then got a whacking great blister on my heel, which was kind of just running downhill too quick. I use a lot of gurney goo, so I put a lot of gurney goo on my feet, which is a very brilliant lubrication which you can get from my race kit. It's not the cheapest, it's more expensive than Vaseline, but boy, it works really well. So I put that on my feet, in my kind of groin, crotch area, armpits, nipples.
Not very poor.
I'm not like I'm greasing up like I'm going to go and swim in the channel or anything. So it's not like I'm like completely greased head to toe. But you're putting, my feet, I'm putting a good bit of covering on.
I've never put anything in my armpits.
My arms used to do that. I used to get chafing under armpits. So
that's because I have better form, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then I wore Kinabalu Scott Kinabalu Ultra, which are just a fantastic shoe. But not the most aggressive trail shoe, but for the dry trails we had in Limestone Way, and the cushioning on them was just fantastic as well.
So good cushioning. They're pretty light, aren't they?
Incredibly light. They feel like a racer trainer almost.
So if it had been a bit muddier, you'd have probably needed.
I would have probably gone for more, kind of a more aggressive style. But and again, just we're doing a lot of training week in, week out, day in, day out. Your feet tend to get used to that kind of amount of abrasion and working, so I tend not to suffer with blisters. So my feet were okay, maybe a little bit sore. We just ran for 7 hours, 6 hours, 18. But yeah, you kind of expect that.
Cool.
Marvellous. Excellent. So sorry, no photos, unfortunately.
Message those privately.
But message us privately.
You can swap photos. It might be, maybe he's just leading us to ask about on his FKT how his nipples were. So we have got a question that Arlene submitted.
Oh, yeah.
Not that one.
Yeah, so Claire, so part of Wild Ginger Running, you can become a patron of Wild Ginger Running if you kind of head over to Wild Ginger Running website. There's a link over to patrons, and you can be a paid patron, and it gives you access to the patron Facebook group. And Claire also does competitions in there as well, just for the patrons. And there's kind of
some discounts and offers and things.
Yeah, so you get kind of discounts with some of the guests we have and the bits of kit. So if you are interested in being a patron, head over there. And as patrons, you get kind of heads up who we're interviewing beforehand, so you can kind of submit questions beforehand. And we have one question. We're going for over an hour now. We thought we'd just be starting for 20 minutes and we'd get an evening off. So Arlene has asked, first of all, she was kind of congratulating, well done on it. And then she has a coaching question. She says, I'm an older, slow back of the pack runner. What of a difference between training for a single one-day ultra and a stage race like the Cape Wrath?
And then the question goes on, because we have cut some of this off, so I'm prepared. Should an older, slow runner even attempt such a thing? And I think one of the things that Ollie mentioned earlier in the comments was about whether there was Cape Wrath was a bit too much, and is there a suitable race that she thinks for somebody not quite up to that.
We should have posted this question ages ago, shouldn't we? Really, because we're now going to end up spending 20 minutes talking about this.
Only if you make it last that long.
No, I mean, I'm a fairly veteran ultramarathon runner now. I'm edging closer towards being 50 than I am kind of 40 anymore. So I'm a firm believer that age is just a number, and that with the right kind of training and approach, that kind of most things are possible. And the great thing of an ultra marathon is it doesn't require the same level of intensity for running things like a marathon or a 10K does. So, you know, and yes, it will involve something like Cape Wrath will involve a fair degree of walking. So, you know, you can mix the training up, so you don't have to be, you know, thinking about, right, I've got to be speedy, I've got to be fast. You know, it's just about kind of time on feet. The other great thing, so with Cape Wrath, so the first year, well, I did the first edition of Cape Wrath, there were two runners in that race. Gene Dykes, who is an American runner, I think holds the record for the fastest marathon. Is he over 80 now, or is he 78? He's in his 70s, and I remember Gene was just, yeah, it's really inspiration to me because he'd be fast packing kind of what I'd call every day. I got a wonderful photo of him with Anne Shallock in the background, and I'm just really inspired by him. There's also another guy, Richard Beard, who I think appears in the film, and he was like, he recently retired or something, and he was saying about, you know, he was mid-60s. And yeah, so, you know, I think, you know, if you get the right approach to the ultra marathon and you see it as an opportunity to mix it up with running and walking and spending time on feet, then it's possible. What you then also have to be mindful of, you know, even like, well, if I'm too slow, then I'm not going to hit the cutoffs, and that's when you need to start thinking, right, well, if I'm going to walk, at what pace do I need to be walking at? You know, we're not talking about kind of ambling around the local park. You know, we're talking about walking with a purpose, so that you're actually moving maybe kind of, you know, 4 miles an hour sort of thing. And so you're able then to hit the cutoffs. If you look at things like Cape Wrath and Dragon's Back, yeah, it tends to be like 3-4 miles an hour you need to be hitting to kind of hit the cutoffs. You know, things like Dragon's Back and Cape Wrath, if you are then out for longer, you do have less time at camp. So that means you have less time to recover, less time to eat and, you know, and drink. So that then has a knock-on impact upon how well you're recovering for each day. So you're then spending more time out on trail than at camp. So that's one thing to always be mindful of as well. You know, how does that going to work? But yeah, you know, I think age, you know, we've got quite a few athletes who are over kind of 55, 60 we're working with for certain events. So yeah, I think it's always about the right approach, you know, and also the reason kind of why you wanted to do it. And you know, something like Cape Wrath, if you're feeling like, you know, 8 days to do the race is a bit much, and doing it as a solo kind of trip can be just as exciting and kind of still doing such a good route. But yeah, kind of just be mindful of, let's just kind of get out there and do keep getting some movement going in.
And in terms of the differences between training for a single day ultra and then stepping up to multi-stage, what would you say the main differences are?
Kind of just getting that time on feet. That really is the most important thing. So with a multi-stage race, I mean, one of the things what is really beneficial for multi-stage, but even for a single stage race, would be kind of running twice a day, or even doing, you know, a walk in the morning, and then a run in the afternoon or evening. And we're only talking maybe doing like a 30-40 minute, you know, walk or run in the morning and afternoon. You know, it's not like you've got to be doing hours upon your feet, because if you're doing training twice a day, it's a real good way of getting good volume in at a low intensity, but it also really encourages the body to speed up its recovery process. So it naturally encourages that recovery process, that increase of growth hormones as well. And yeah, it's just a really good way of getting that low intensity. And you don't have to be doing back-to-backs all the time as well, because they can cause so much fatigue. So, and that's another good reason for doing kind of double days as well, because that's a way of putting that extra volume in without doing kind of big 4 or 5 hours on the Saturday and then another 4 or 5 hours on the Sunday. So that would be the main difference for a multi-stage. It is just trying to get as much low intensity volume in time-wise as you possibly can squeeze in. And, don't be afraid of walking as much as just running. It's only gone really bright. Is that because we've been running for an
Lights
hour?
on, we need to Yeah.
Lights on, not lights off.
Kicked off.
Excellent. So I hope that answered the question there, Arlene. She has asked, what goals do you have in the future? Anything in the US? Lots in the US.
We're only just allowed out of our village.
We have been allowed out of the village for a while. We've not been like in Eve.
I've been out of the village.
It's not been that completely. It's not like yes, the barricades at the end of the village high street have been moved. Marvellous. So excellent. Well, there we go. This has been a complete Scotney takeover.
Welcome to our world.
If you have survived the 70 minutes that we have talked
Don't worry, we'll have another proper person on next.
Then well
in 2
done.
weeks.
If you've taken us out for a run, we hope we've maybe put a small smile upon your face, or that you've maybe just held your head in your hands going, what are these two going on about? But yeah, and so we're back in 2 weeks' time. We don't know if Claire has a guest lined up next week, what she's got planned.
Claire will be back next week.
Claire will be back next week. Who have we got in 2 weeks' time?
You can ask me that. Is it Ben?
It's Ben Mancy. We're going fell running. So we are going completely off kind of ultras and off the trail. We are going on to the fells. So if you've ever...
And kind of international fells as
International,
well.
Yeah. Ben is a renowned fell runner up in the Wharfdale Valley, the kind of Grassington area. He has done some amazing mountain races in Italy and places of Europe. So if you ever thought about having a go at fell running, or what is fell running? What's the difference between fell running and trail running, and why is it called fell running? Yeah, I think I might know the answer to it. But I'm saying for those who are maybe wanting to join us in 2 weeks' time, and you want to find a bit more about fell running, come along. We're going to be chatting to Ben, talking about the difference between fell running and why we want to maybe become a bit more adventurous and disappear off into the mountains a little bit.
I thought we were just going to chat about how nice his coffee that he sells.
There will be a fair degree of coffee chat as well. I will be getting some barista tips. No, I used to be a barrister, but we're going for barista tips as well. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have managed to kind of go the whole way through.
Congratulations to Marcus on his FKT/record.
And congratulations for you, the listener and the viewer, for enduring the whole way through this. If you've been watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed it, please click the subscribe button to keep update with what other amazing interviews we will be having along board. And Arlene, you're more than welcome. We'll send you the payment details later. No, honestly, we kind of can sit and chat about coaching all night long. It's one of the reasons why we love the job, and we feel very fortunate that we can share our passion of running and our expertise of coaching with other people as well. But yeah, so if you've enjoyed, click the subscribe button so you keep up to date. If you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. If you want to leave a comment down below, we'll try and maybe answer some other comments. If you've been listening to this on podcast and you have enjoyed it, then please leave a review down below. It will help Claire to say. If you're interested in becoming a patron, head over to the Patreon website and then click on there. So I think that's all the admin bits we're meant to be doing as well. We hope you've enjoyed this evening. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
Stay safe, happy running.
Bye-bye.
Take care.